What's going on, everybody? Guess what? Auburn is still dancing, and they're dancing not too far away from the plains. Of course, that means we got to check in with our guy, Mike G. Busy on the road, has enough coffee and caffeine to join us here. My friend, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Rex. It was a busy weekend in Lexington. We had fun up there. Auburn won their first two games, so they're out of the first weekend, which is important for Bruce Pearl. A lot of criticism for not being able to get his team out of the first weekend, and they did that. And I thought, look, you're the #1 overall seed. You get the cakewalk matchup with Alabama State. No disrespect to them. They gave as much fight as they possibly could, had a great season. And then Creighton, a sneaky, tough Creighton matchup in that second round that they handled, winning by double-digit points. Story of the game was Johni Broome having a single-digit scoring game, but Chad Baker-Mazara and Denver Jones and Tahad Pettiford, of course, picking up the scoring load. Tahad leading Auburn with 23 points.
We've talked about their depth on this roster over and over again, week after week. It's proved it again. We'll get to the guys here. We'll dig deeper into those numbers. Want to talk about a new chapter, though, with the women's basketball team. Larry Vickers, the new head coach for the Auburn women's basketball team, comes over from quite a run at Norfolk State. But Norfolk State doesn't nearly have the competition. All respect to the MEAC, it is the SEC. Your thoughts on the hire, and you were there at the press conference. What did you think of Coach Vickers?
I got a chance to meet Coach Vickers. I like him. I think he commands authority and presence, and I think that he'll do well. Look, first and foremost, he knows basketball. He can coach basketball. He's a great coach. I think this was as good a hire as Auburn could have expected to make under the circumstances. So, and what are those circumstances? Well, I got a chance to talk to John Cohen, after the press conference. I was talking to him in Lexington about the investment that Auburn is or isn't willing to make in women's basketball to help catch up with the LSUs and South Carolinas of the conference, Rex. It looks like they're on the cusp of that. There's some changes coming to NIL. They've got to figure out how they're going to split up essentially $18 million in NIL that the university will control directly, and that's pending the passing of a House bill that we expect to pass. As you know, I cover UCF. They've already reorganized for this change. But you've got 74 additional scholarships that will be distributed amongst the Olympic sports. Those scholarships are going to cost about $2.5 million, bringing that $20.5 million cap down to $18 million. There's no requirement that universities spend a minimum on any sport.
Wow.
So they're really going to have to look and see that it's worth the investment. And I feel good that they just hired Larry Vickers. Now, this is Cohen's hire, so he should feel good about investing in his guy.
Should be really interesting to see, again, a man who has had quite the run. Do some research on him. 3 MEAC State Conference championships, 3 NCAA appearances. Did a great job down there for the Spartans. But let's talk about our Tigers, shall we? All right, they've gotten past the first weekend. It was erratic and stressful at times, but then eventually they come out on top. I want to ask you this. You mentioned it off the top. Johni Broome scored in single digits. Usually when you shut down a team's best player, I would argue if you shut down Cooper Flagg and he has under 10 points, Duke's going to struggle. They have talent there, but sure, they're not going to be as powerful as they are. With Johni Broome, we've talked about how deep this team is. That showed off in this first weekend, didn't it?
Yeah, it's something that we've talked about repeatedly with Auburn. The strength of the team is depth. Now, when Chaney and Tahad Pettiford, when Chaney and Tahad struggle, you see those bench points go down.
Yeah.
Right? Tahad not only got the bench points up, but he led Auburn in scoring, and it was nice to see Bruce Pearl stay with the hot hand there. Look, what was his name? Ashworth. There was a clip of him saying, "They can't guard me. They can't guard me." The guy who should have been saying that but wasn't was Tahad Pettiford. They had no answer for him. He was dropping threes. He was driving to the bucket. He was hitting runners. He was every bit of the 5 stars they recruited when they brought him to Auburn. So it was exciting to see that Johni could have an off game and it wouldn't spell the end for Auburn. Now, Chad Baker-Mazara got hurt into the second half, about 7 minutes into the second half. But those first 6.5 minutes, he scored 12 points. And those were probably the most impactful 12 points of the game. So like you said, outside of Johni Broome, there was a lot of support for him to have an off night and for Auburn to still win this game by double digits.
It's really very impressive there. And now they're marching to the Sweet 16. And if you want to know, it's right up the road in Atlanta. It is a 2-hour drive from point to point, from Neville Arena to State Farm.
2 hours? How slow are you driving, Rick?
Well, that's also fair. And also Atlanta traffic, you don't got to factor in that point.
If the GSP is listening, please.
All traffic laws, y'all. We love our speed limits. Real quick, though, this could be pretty much a home court advantage because of all the Auburn fans on the travel, all the Auburn fans in Atlanta. That could be the jungle, the Northeast jungle at this point, right?
Yeah, they're calling it Neville East. But look, yeah, at the end of the day, Auburn fans are going to show up for this one. Ticket prices are high.
Oh, Lord.
You're going to need a few $100 to get a ticket to this one. Auburn fans are going to drive those ticket prices up. But look, this was a favorable draw geographically for Auburn to be in Lexington and now to be in Atlanta for arguably the more important games. Now, you didn't need a crowd to beat Alabama State and Creighton, right? But you will need a crowd to beat Michigan, I think, and then potentially you've got Ole Miss for a fourth time if they can get through. Now, look, I ran into Greg Sankey on my way out after the Creighton matchup, and I said, Commissioner, how many teams would you like to see? He looked at me and he said, hell, how many we got left? And he actually tweeted that he ran into a member of the media. I was like, you know my name, Greg. But they tweeted a graphic, 7 teams, the most any conference has ever put into the Sweet 16. I think it validates the strength of the conference that we've been singing all year. We've been singing their praises. And now you've got to validate it even more. So I think that I called 8 teams of the 14 into the round of 32. I did not make a call on how many teams would make it into the Sweet 16, but I will make a call on the 7. I think 4 teams make it to the Elite 8. This is a historically strong squad for the SEC. Florida's going to make it. Auburn's going to make it, right? I hate to say it, but Alabama's going to make it. Yeah, and roll the dice, one of the other teams are going to make it. So it's going to be a hell of an Elite 8, I think, Rex. But, being in Atlanta certainly is a blessing for Auburn.
100% in the heart of SEC country, and the Elite 8 will be now known as the SEC Tournament, at least for this March Madness. Let's talk about Johni Broome, though. Of course, he struggled a little bit. Do you expect him to have a big performance coming up?
He's going to snap out of it. He's going to snap out of it, and they're not going to stop going to him. I think that's important. Now, the balance of minutes has been something that Bruce Pearl teams, I think, they differ from a lot of teams in that way, that he plays a lot of guys. And so if you're Johni, you do more than just score, and I want to remind people of that, right? Like, he rebounded in that game, and he did other things. He did a lot of hustle plays. He affected that game, albeit not as much on the scoreboard as he usually does. He still did other things that Johni Broome typically does. So he is still an asset to you on the court, even when he is not scoring. And that's why you built the team that you did. You've got scores. They just have to do the job, and, they did it against Creighton. Look, they're going up against a familiar foe in Trey Donaldson.
I was just about to ask about that.
Versus Michigan. And I think it'll be fun for those guys. Trey left here on good terms, but I'm looking forward to seeing how those guys compete against each other. You've got to get it done. From this point forward, there are no easy games. There are only
it's going to be brutal games,
difficult matchups here. And to be the king of the top of this mountain at the end, you're going to have to win tough games from here forth. So I expect it to be a dogfight versus Michigan.
Part of that dogfight, and you just brought it up, Trey Donaldson, again, did everything he could for the Auburn Tigers, was a great player for them. Ultimately, makes his decision to go up to Michigan. His speed, his playmaking, his decision-making, and his clutch play has really shined at Michigan. But Trey Donaldson versus a Tahad Pettiford versus a Denver Jones, what do you think of that matchup?
I think Trey versus Denver Jones is really what I want to see. Denver is the defensive specialist. We had a quote from him after, in Lexington, talking about how he focused on defenses because he wanted to be one of the best two-way players in the league. I think he has accomplished that goal. He had 15 points on 5 of 8 shooting. So he is not only scoring, but he's scoring efficiently. He doesn't need a ton of shots to get to double-digit points for Auburn and help affect the game offensively. But defensively, it's really hard to quantify his effect on the game because when he's locking guys down and they're not scoring, you don't look at the stat sheet automatically and be like, that was Denver Jones's guy. But so many nights it is. And so if he can continue to do that, and he can do that to some extent to Trey, I think Michigan's going to have a really hard time with Auburn.
Speaking of Michigan, they're also, that front court is pretty brutal. 2 7-footers down there. And Danny Wolf and Vladislav Golden, they both help lead the Michigan Wolverines in scoring. They both work really well together. It's old school basketball, the Twin Tower effect. You had 2 bigs working down low. But this is going to be Dylan Cardwell and Johni Broome kind of working, their biggest challenge physically also as well. How do you like that matchup?
Look, I like it a lot, but don't forget Chaney Johnson can bang down there with the bigs as well too. He's a really strong guy, so they'll lean on him defensively as well to help combat those Twin Towers. Ultimately, these guys have got to play and defend without fouling. So this is what I'd worry about in this matchup is that if they decide to attack the paint with those 2 big 7-footers, right? Can they defend the paint? And stay out of foul trouble? It's been a problem for Auburn at times this year where they've gotten Johni in foul trouble and had to pull him out of the game. And it's not just about his scoring. When he's not in there, you don't have a guy who can defend that rim as well, and you don't have a guy who can rebound and keep them off the offensive board. if you're Auburn, you can't give up a ton of second chance points in this game and expect to win.
Yeah.
So they're going to have to rebound and defensively keep Michigan off the offensive boards, and keeping Dylan and Janai out of foul trouble is going to be the key to that.
Could Chad Baker-Mazar play a big role in this win as well? Because he's had some pretty good games as well.
Yeah, he could. We've got to get an update on the status
Sure.
of his. It looked like he took a shot to the side there. He went down to the floor, and he tried to come back later in the game in spots. I think because there were times where they were expecting a foul and they were trying to get him on the free throw line. He's Auburn's best free throw shooter. But if he's healthy, the answer is yes. If he's not, you're Auburn. You're back to the drawing board trying to mix and match again, which certainly they have the personnel to do.
Look, it's going to be a lot of fun, y'all. In Atlanta, again, this is basically an extended backyard of Auburn. Overall, I want to get your final thoughts on this matchup. Here we are, here goes Auburn, and they're marching towards their ultimate goal of the Final Four. What do you like about this matchup? What worries you most about this matchup?
I think it's offensive rebounding. When Auburn has lost the offensive rebounding battle, they've been in real trouble. They've struggled to win games. So it's about not losing the rebounding battle. Again, if you look at the statistics throughout the games they've lost, there's a theme, and it's losing that rebounding battle by double digits sometimes. So they've got to keep rebounding even at least, right? Keep Michigan off the offensive boards, right? And stay in the flow of your offense, right? Do what you do. Good shot selection. Against Creighton, what I saw was a team that chose their shots well. They were coming off screens. They were making crisp passes, and they took care of the basketball, limiting the turnovers. That's another way you give Michigan second chances at points that you can't do in this one. Again, no easy matchups moving forward. So you cannot beat yourself. And when Auburn has lost, I feel like it's been them beating themselves more so than the other teams beating them. The only matchup I think that they've had this year that they've lost where I felt like they didn't beat themselves was Florida.
Oh, see, and that was one of those matches. Florida's quite on the run right now. So, well, Mike, taking another shot. How many are moving from the 16 to the 8?
I'm moving 4.
Moving 4 on to
from
the 8.
the 16 to the 8. I think this continues to be a historically strong season for the SEC. And look, at the end of the day, if only 1 or 2 move forward, that does not, to me, that does nothing to diminish what they've accomplished so far, because no team has ever put 7 teams in the Sweet 16. So you can't now go backwards and say, oh, but look how many lost. No, these are all tough matchups. So, reasonably, of the 7, 5 could lose.
Absolutely.
Reasonably.
Or, again, it could be easily that because of how crazy this is. The Big Ten, great showing out here. And, of course, Duke being Duke this year with Cooper Flagg and how well he's playing. Well, I'm really happy that your commute this time in this round is going to be a lot shorter, my friend. But before you go, where can people find you online? And, of course, this isn't the only team that you cover, right?
It is. Follow me at The War Rapport. Also, subscribe on YouTube to the War Rapport and Locked On UCF. We're doing some things over there. Doing a lot of NIL coverage on Locked On UCF as well, too. Follow me at Mike Gittens on Twitter and at Mike Gittens _ on Instagram.
Hey, my guys, he spent a lot of time on the road and has done great work for the War Report. Definitely check it out, and always appreciate your time here too, my friend.
Thanks, Rex.
Guys, that'll do it for another War Report Wednesday. We'll see you guys next week.